Okay, so thanks everybody for joining. I'm sure that everybody knows me. My name is Thorsten, or people call me Thor. My gender pronouns are he and him, and I acknowledge that I'm on the beautiful lands of the Diga First Nations, what is also known as Fort Providence. And this is also where we have the training center for table tennis, and I'm excited to see both Kathleen and David come and join us this weekend. So yeah, with us here too, we have Emilia. Emilia is the Actimina Games coach for Team NT at the 2023 Actimina Games. So excited to be here. And then I think Shelby, I'm going to leave the introduction to yourself. And yeah, thank you very much for being here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Thorsten, for the beautiful introduction. And thank you everyone for being here. I'll just move to my slides. So my name is Shelby Snodgrass and my gender pronouns are she, her. And I am speaking to you today from where I live and work on the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh Coast Salish peoples. So if you do want to acknowledge the land that you're joining from, you're welcome to do so in the chat. Today, our discussion is going to be around the power of mindset. So knowing that we're different ages, we may have different experience and background with mental performance and, different amount of time in sport. So hoping that this discussion can be more exploring mindset and looking at the foundational components of that today. So I am also a registered clinical counselor, yoga teacher, and I did attend the Canada Summer Games, and I'm looking forward to Canada Winter Games, where I am paired with table tennis. So I'm super excited about that. And I primarily work in private practice, and I'm with the UBC varsity athletes this year as well. So my sport background was I was a swimmer, a competitive swimmer at UBC, and sport is such a special place and a lot of beautiful lessons learned and relationships built. So I feel really privileged to be working alongside athletes and coaches professionally now. So to speak to you a little bit today, I wanted to provide a bit of a context here. So I know I asked when it was just you and I, Morgan, but maybe show of hands. So I will invite you to participate. We have a few activities today, but you're welcome to pass. You're welcome to, you participate to your comfort level, whether that's in the chat or there's a few anonymous opportunities, or if you feel like unmuting yourself and saying something. So I'll leave that up to you, but I will provide some invitations throughout our time together tonight. But maybe show of hands, your favorite emoji. Has anyone here worked with a mental performance consultant before? Really know what mental performance is? Show of hands. Yeah. Okay, we've got Amelia. Awesome. Amelia, if you're comfortable, like what does mental performance mean to you, or what has been helpful in your previous experience?
So, of course, when I started having someone who was following my journey throughout table tennis mentally, I felt listened, because when you're playing, there's so much thoughts going through your minds, and sometimes you even think you're crazy or you're just different from anyone else, but actually everyone feels the same thoughts at different levels. So I felt really listened, and I even managed to have tricks to help me reduce my stress a lot, and visualization has helped me really a lot. And so it helped me a lot throughout my journey.
Wow, sounds like some pretty powerful like aha moments. Yeah.
No, but it's all true. It's all true.
Thank you so much for sharing. Did anyone else want to share anything before we moved forward? I know, Thorsten, you put an emoji up. I didn't know if there was anything just from your perspective, like the value of this work, or
No, and what just Amelia said too, visualization is a huge one, that's for sure. And then you have, of course, breathing and just a practice in place for yourself to be ready for competition, and creating that little ritual. We talk about rituals a lot, and I think that's really important that you have that in mind. And whenever there's a moment of distress or you're nervous or anything else, that you have that routine and you can go work backwards and get settled. Your heartbeat goes down, your breathing goes slower, and so on. So yeah, whatever Amelia said was really nice.
Yeah, I second that. Wonderful. Thank you. And you're right, like as athletes, we perform on demand, right? We have to perform, be ready, and and there can be a lot going on. We're human beings. So throughout the conversation tonight, we'll position mental performance within like a bigger scope of mental health and look at some of the building blocks. But you're right, it's what do I do to perform, what supports me as an individual, which takes a lot of self-awareness and may look different from your teammates, which is great. We want to really embrace our uniqueness and some of the similarities and what will support you for your performance and your overall well-being. So what I like to start with too is the power of perspective. So looking at athlete development and how mindset really shapes us for greater possibilities. And in order to do that, we really have to look at what our attitudes, beliefs and values are around performance. So do we have awareness around what is helpful for us, what seems to be unhelpful, and what are some of the roots of these beliefs? One thing I like to point out is like, success, right? How do I measure success? Is it in the outcome? Is it in titles? Is it in achievements? Or is it in, what you're learning about yourself, how you've improved from last time, maybe the approach that you had that was different. So it's really starting to invite some curiosity around this. And I love to bring up where your mind goes, your attention flows. So if we get stuck, like, has anyone here ever had like a bad, maybe like a time that they underperformed? Maybe you would label it like a bad performance that you kind of find yourself going back to in your mind when there's maybe higher pressure. Like anybody ever notice themselves do that? Come back to okay, yeah, I'm seeing a head nod there. Yeah, so where our mind goes, our attention flows. And you think of your mind like grass, and what happens when you water grass? Does anybody know what happens when you put water on grass? Any comments in the chat or unmute yourself?
It gets wet.
Yeah, so when you water grass, it grows. So it grows, it gets stronger, it gets longer. And that's the same with the thoughts. So where we're putting our attention, the thoughts that we're buying into, those thoughts get stronger and they grow. And this can say like, oh, like I find myself in this pattern. However, it should also, provide a bit of opportunity, because that means that we can change it. We can shift our thoughts, and we can relearn and rewire our thinking to be more favorably for us and enhance our performance. So shifting our mindset allows us to strengthen these connections. So I know, Amelia, you kind of mentioned it, but show of hands, has anyone ever felt like their mind is working against them at times? Like, like what? Like, what is it? Anybody notice? Okay. Yeah. Anybody here beat themselves up after making a mistake or like an error that you're like, why did I do that? Like, I haven't done that in a while. Or anybody find themselves lingering kind of after the fact? Okay. Yeah. A few more there. So that occupies space in our mind. And it can also have us, it can bring fear in, right? I'm fearful of this happening again. So there's a few basketball references that I really like, and I wanted to kind of pose a question to the group, like, who do you think has the most missed shots in the whole NBA? Any guesses? Any fans here? I don't know if there's any most missed shots.
That's a good one. I like that a lot.
Do you know the answer, Thurston?
Yeah, I mean, it's a debate if it's Wayne Gretzky said it or Jordan. So it's a tough one.
So the most missed shots in the NBA is actually Kobe Bryant. I know no longer with us, but he had the most missed shots in the whole NBA. However, when you think about Kobe Bryant, does anyone here know who he is? Like basketball, anyone know? Yeah, very like decadent athlete, right? And like one of the best. And do you think he said to himself when he made a mistake, oh no, I'm not gonna be able to do this again. That's it. I can't get back out there. Maybe at some capacity. However, what he did is he kept showing up. So what I wanted to put here is, when we consider mindset, here's a quote actually from Kobe, and it says, the mindset isn't about seeking a result. It's more about the process of getting to that result. It's about the journey and the approach. It's a way of life. I do think it's important in all endeavors to have this mentality. Anybody here, like hearing that quote, do you identify with it? Is there some things you appreciate in it? I don't know, just what, any initial thoughts or anything stand out to you? Anybody here appreciate the it's a way of life? Yeah. Let's see a few head nods there. Absolutely. So really having self-awareness is the first step of knowing, you know, what are helpful patterns that I have, what are unhelpful patterns, and what is my current belief system about making mistakes? Like, what does that mean to me? And are my beliefs around this helpful or is it unhelpful for me? So one example that I like to have is military and doctors are actually trained to make mistakes and how they prepare for them because they perform a lot of their work under very increased pressure where there is very high stakes. So their culture is actually supports them to focus quickly and carefully on coping and learning from them rather than avoiding the mistakes to begin with. So what this requires, and I know both Amelia and Thurston, you mentioned this, is like that optimal self-regulation is so important in order to know where you are and then how to respond to support yourself. So it requires responding to threats mindfully, flexibly, and dynamically rather than automatically, habitually, and rigidly. So it's really looking at how do we view learning and how do we view growth and how do we shift that mindset so the automatic is now more favorable for us based on our goals. So a little bit of something to think about when you're considering how hard you can be on yourself, and maybe that's taking up space for what did I learn from this? What can I do different? And actually, this is part of my growth and my development as an athlete and a person. So can everybody see this performance wheel okay? Yeah. Perfect. So any observations about the graph? Not that it's lopsided, someone mentioned that before, and that's just my artistry. Is there any observations around what you notice about this performance wheel? Okay. Feel free to write in the chat too if it's more comfortable for you. But hopefully you're noticing that mental health is the big ring outside of all of it. So mental health is the foundation, it's the support, it's the baseline. And then what we have here is different components of your sport and training. So there's going to be technical aspects, physical, mental, and tactical, which are then supported by your lifestyle. So the basic how you spend your time, what has your attention, how much sleep you're getting, how you're nourishing your body, like the decisions that you're making on a daily basis really influences this integration. So just for yourself, take a moment to reflect or let me know, but if you had a pie of 100%, how much percentage would you give? Like how big of a piece of pie would you say you spend on the technical side of your sport, the physical, the mental, and the tactical? What do you notice about it? Are they evenly divided? Is one section a little bit bigger than the other? And maybe which one's the smallest? Does anybody have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that a lot, Shabby, because it's for everybody might be different a little bit. I'm sure that the mental part is a big one, even if we don't realize it for sure. But what I've seen in table tennis on a national level, for example, that we focus too much on technical and tactical. There's not as much physical part of it. If it is, it's sport specific and definitely hardly any mental one. So that's just my experiences, I think.
Absolutely. And thank you for adding that because it's true. You know, the way that your pie is integrated is going to be unique to you, what you're working on, what your strengths are, some things that you're further developing. However, if one side of this, say, for example, the mental is completely, maybe it's at 5% and all the rest are higher, how do you think that wheel's going to flow and roll? Do you think it's going to be smooth? Any No, okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, exactly. So it's not going to be smooth, right? So it's, different parts of the season, different times you may be focusing and narrowing in on zooming in on different sides of this wheel. However, it's always important to come back and say, where am I? What are important components of my mental and how do I carry these threads with me? So I kind of like an analogy. Everybody here, does anybody here have their cell phone? Everyone here have a cell phone? Yeah. Not with them right now, but just in general, maybe a phone. I see one head shake. So think of your mental health as the charger, and think of your cell phone as the way that these different aspects of your sport are together. So what do you think happens if your battery's low and you've lost your charger? Your charger's gone. What happens to your phone? Anybody's anxiety increasing as we talk about a low battery and no charger around for the phone? Yeah, so we're not in a good place when we don't have our charger and we're not taking the time to recalibrate, to take care of our mental health, that we're not going to be able to enhance and effectively work on mental performance if we're not taking care of the foundation. So just a kind of a perspective on that, how important it is for rest and recovery and to take care of your mental health. So mindset, when we look at this, it's really showing that mindset of performance is really a way of life, and there's transferable skills and how you spend your time that will apply to your sport. So everything that you're doing has the potential to meaningfully contribute to your performance. And I think sometimes it's there can be fear-based decisions around, no, I need to train more, I need to do this more, I need to do this. But really, when we zoom out and we see all the important things in your life, if they meaningfully contribute to your mental health, they're going to contribute to your performance, right? So I'm kind of taking a look around what this idea looks like. One example too that I like to add is when comparing, the physical to the mental. What do you think would happen if, all season all you did was train your right bicep? So you're doing right biceps just all year, and you don't even work on the left. Do you think that's effective way to train? Seeing some head shakes or some kind of gasps. Yeah, so it's kind of like, if I did one squat, in the gym and said, okay, well, I did that, I think I'm good for this season. Do you think that would be effective? Again, no. Some thirst in your eyes get so big, it's awesome. But sometimes we can get into those habits when we think about the mental aspects of sport. At the beginning of the year, we may do goal setting, and then sometimes not revisit certain things, or not debrief and revisit certain components of mental. So it's the same thing with mental. Just as we want to be consistent with our physical training and different things that we may be doing, we want to make sure we're consistent with our mental training and making those commitments to yourself in terms of energy management, attention, focus, and support. So hopefully a little bit here to consider. So when we look at lifestyle, oh, sorry, was there a comment there?
Yeah, I have a question, Shelby. Can you go back the slide?
Of course.
So let's say that we want to actually make it practical. So we have the Active Winter Games coming up, McKenna Games. We have all our athletes here. Like, what would you suggest for them to prepare? There's still final exams happening for some of them. There is, they have never participated in the games. Like, how practical, what do you think should this look like for them?
In terms of which section?
Like the mental health preparation, or the performance wheel, is what should they focus on? Or should they make it even? Or should they focus now more on the technical aspects or the physical aspects, or just really on the mental aspect?
Yeah, no, great question. So I think when we look at approaching a major event, we really come down to no big changes like in routine or reinventing the wheel. So it would be what do you do to support yourself for an event? Keep doing those things that are helpful. And before we go to the games, let's have some conversations around potential barriers, additional stressors, different challenges that this unique environment will face. Now let's look at how we can be proactive and support, each athlete and have these conversations so that they're Proactive means reducing reactivity, right? So if we're proactive, we can respond to the environment and hopefully ease their ability to make decisions that are helpful and supportive of them at the game. So that's something that, again, me being with table tennis, I can connect with the athletes or set up additional sessions to kind of go through that and what that could look like in greater detail, especially given that the personal space, sleeping arrangements, a lot of cafeteria, a lot of things look different at this event. So we kind of plan and prepare for that. Does that kind of?
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I like that you said, it's like at this point in stage, just continue what you're doing and maybe add a little bit and don't make any major changes. I think that's the biggest statement that you need to put here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and
Yeah.
talk about it, right? Wow, if this comes up and then you work, your mind's kind of working on it and it's kind of given space. So yeah, if anything else comes up, feel free to let me know. And then for those of us on the call tonight, it's really important to know, like, when you think about lifestyle, what are the different components of your life that are occupying your time? What brings your life meaning? What are you really excited about? As Thorsten mentioned, we've got student athletes that are balancing a lot, different demands. There's different home responsibilities. Maybe there's hobbies and other interests that you have, friends and family. So important to kind of decide for yourself what this is comprised of. But knowing that when we show up with our time intentionally, then that really does support us with our performance. So having intention, carving out time for this allows us to show up and be present with where we are. So we'll get into a little bit more detail about that. But anybody here really consider their time and attention with lifestyle? One example I like to add with perhaps younger athletes is the influence of social media, right? So with social media, you're really ingesting and absorbing a lot of information on an unconscious level and as well as conscious. So it's important to know, if where I'm spending my time, is this contributing to my self-esteem, how I feel about myself, my well-being, or is it a distraction? Is it an avoidance strategy, technique? And do I not feel as good about what I'm doing and where I'm at when I look at it, and really starting to make those changes to support you. So that's one thing I like to add, just because social media and our access to information is so great. Okay, so here we have a little bit about attention and how it's the currency of performance, and how when we've experienced something that's been challenging or difficult, this is really active for us athletes. So does anybody recall a time that they underperformed, or a time that just a memory that doesn't really sit well with them? Again, you don't have to share details of the event or anything, but does anybody have one of those moments? In sport, yeah. A little head nod. Okay, yeah. So we'll have one of these moments or a memory. Things didn't really go as we planned. Maybe something unexpected happened. Maybe it wasn't our day. And but has anybody here worried that something that has happened in the past will happen again? Has anybody been like, oh no, that really wasn't a good time, I'm worried about it? Okay, see Amelia, yes, thank you. So you can resonate with this. And is anybody worried that maybe you won't get your desired result in the future? Anybody ever worry about that? Maybe I won't get the outcome I want. Maybe it won't work out. Anybody ever have that thought? Okay, so the reason why I'm asking these questions, actually, these are very negative. Why are you asking me all these questions? However, there's a reason for this, and it's because the experiences that we've had in the past affect us in the present, and they take up space in our minds. So what happens in the past can affect our future performance if we're not aware that it's being active. So what I like to highlight here is that the past is a memory, and the present is, a future anticipation. So it can be a future anticipation of an event, if something maybe hasn't gone favorably for us in the past. However, if we use the past as information, we can actually imagine and create a future, an ideal performance, if we have awareness around what would support us in getting there. So when we're based in fear, expectations, we're really doing ourselves a disservice, because if the currency is attention and being in the present, then we're not really in the present when we're expecting something to happen or we're fearful that something will happen again, because that is no longer this moment. This is the opportunity now in the moment. So does anybody here, have you ever felt like really present in a competition, or just felt like you played your best, really happy with your performance? Anybody like feel comfortable sharing what that was like for them, being really present?
I feel like when you're in the present moment, that's when you get your best performance. But it's really difficult to be in that zone, the zone of performance. So, well, you have to find tricks to get into that zone, and then you feel like so powerful. You feel like nothing can stop you, and it's like the best memories of the sport and the tournaments I have.
Yeah, and how do you feel right now as you just shared about it, Amelia? Like, do you notice even any changes? Like,
Yeah, it just reminds me, because now I'm a coach, and I remember when I was a player, and it makes me happy to share that with other players. And I hope they get to be in that zone someday, or maybe if they have yet. But for example, Kathleen is really young, so I'm expecting a really good future for her, and I hope she can get in that zone. That's what I'm trying to say.
awesome. Yes. And did anyone notice a shift in Amelia to telling that story? Like, did you see just kind of like the joy or like the the memory come up? Thorsten, were you going to add something?
Yeah, no, I don't want to put David on the spot, but I have a question for David. Is because when I look at David, I see he's in that spot all the time. He's excited about hitting this crazy, funky ping pong ball from right to left. And I just wonder, David, if you want to comment on that. Is that like, are you in that kind of a zone, or is it just looking from the outside?
I don't really know. It's just going with the flow, I guess.
Mhm.
Not
Okay.
not overthinking it. And I mean, that could be the zone. That could be a zone.
Oh yeah. Well, when you
Thanks,
think
David.
about the zone, you think about flow state, right? So you're not, you're not there, you're in the moment, you're in the flow of things. So I really liked that word that you used, David, like flow. And how do you notice how you feel in your body when you're in flow? I don't know if you can recall kind of how you have felt in your body, but are you tense? Are you more relaxed?
I don't really know. It's kind of like a medium state, I'd say.
Okay, a medium, kind of best of both, like I'm in between. Okay, yeah. And it's really interesting. And it's okay if you don't have the answers to this right now. What it really is kind of an opportunity to reflect, like, how do I know when I'm in the past? How do I play? What am I thinking? How is that feeling? How do I know when I'm in the future? Same questions. How am I playing? How am I thinking? How am I feeling? And how am I in the present? And one of the quickest ways, if you do notice that you may be extending to the past or to the future, one of the quickest ways to come back to the present is to connect with your senses. So again, that's what am I seeing? What am I feeling, hearing, smelling, and tasting? And different cues that may be helpful for you, whether that's internally with your breath, maybe you're hearing your breath as you exhale, maybe you're having a more external visual cue, but it's something just to be mindful of that can help you really come back and center the moment. Because again, the past, like if I have an example here, our brain likes to work on a predictive system. So it says, you know what, I want to think as little as possible. So if I can make a connection to make our life easier, I'm going to do it. And sometimes with performance, that happens in a really unfavorable way for us. So does anybody here like have a cat? Like, does anybody have a cat here? And cat lovers in the group? Okay, there we go. Kathleen has a cat. Wonderful. Kathleen, and again, you don't have to unmute yourself, but what happens when you put a laser, like, one of those lasers to the wall? Like what does the cat do when you put a little laser pointer to the wall? Has anybody seen that? Have you seen the cat just like run and follow the laser and try to get it? Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? So that's what happens to our brain. So our brain says, here's this cue, I am running for it. I'm going. And that can always not be helpful for us. So an example is, what if one day I woke up, I have a really big event, but I actually wake up late. I wake up late, it's raining, I'm rushing to the, to the swimming pool for using my sport. I'm rushing to the pool. I actually don't get as much warm up as I want because I've missed the time. And then I actually lose to my competitor. I don't make it into the A final. How do you think I feel next time I wake up late and it's an event day? How do you think I feel? Any guesses? Who thinks that I'm feeling really relaxed and my best? Who thinks that I would feel stressed and a little worried? Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, it'll be different for everyone. However, for me, this would be that event, right? Feeling stressed, feeling a little activated. Something's happened to the past. And really what this is an opportunity to to make those unconscious patterns conscious and know that now I can use my skills to support myself. So coming back to the visualization example, how I talked about the bicep curl earlier, what if I only train one bicep all summer? So if you think about 3 different groups, one group that does bicep curls in the gym all summer, one that visualizes them, and one that watches Netflix, who do you think actually gets a bit stronger when they come back over the season? And like, show of hands, feel free to raise a hand. Who thinks the bicep group in the gym got stronger? Show of hand, who thinks that they got stronger after the summer? They're coming back. Okay, yeah, thank you, thank you. What do we think about Netflix group? Did they get stronger after the summer? Nope. Okay, what about the visualization group? Did they get stronger? Yeah, there we go, Kathleen. Yes. Good one. So they did. So it really shows that we can learn from our past, we can learn from what happens, we can learn from things that were difficult for us, and we can use these skills to enhance our performance in a really intentional and meaningful way. So thank you for entertaining that. So what is helpful is thinking about different high pressure situations, things that may cause you some distress in your sport, maybe some different sensitivities that you have, and then visualizing how you would want to show up in those situations. What would be helpful? Because if you imagine things going poorly, you're reinforcing and strengthening the fact that it would. And your body can't tell the difference between speaking and doing. So it'll take it in like, okay, here, it'll keep that circuit going. So it'll water the grass. So what we'd like to do is now shift and water different grass. Say, I see you, and now I'm going to intentionally shift my focus here to break that pattern. So hopefully that's something. I know there's visualization here that Amelia, you mentioned using. So really great tool in a lower pressure environment, as you're not in the field of play or in your performance setting, to start to say, how would I manage that? What would that look like? What skills can I use? So some food for thought there. And really, when we think about mindset, has anybody here heard of growth and fixed mindset before? Show of hands. Has this been something? Yep, Thurston, awesome. Anyone else? Okay, so I know you can read it here on the slide, but fixed is kind of, I'm an everyday expert. I want to perfect my craft. I want to avoid failure at all cost. I'm going to keep reproducing what I know, maybe something that worked, in this one performance. Believes that the strengths are innate. Again, this is like a generalization. It can be different for everyone. And they develop and try to perfect abilities. So I wouldn't say, fixed mindset is totally not helpful, or it wouldn't be here, right? It wouldn't be here. So it's just important to know, like, am I limiting myself, and what are my beliefs around this? And is it helpful or unhelpful for my performance? So starting to think about these questions, where growth mindset, an everyday learner who wants to see growth and development, focus improving on how they do things. So the process, the systems in play, and believe that their strengths can be developed and they can continue to reach higher levels of achievement and ability. Benefit mindset, not something we'll totally explore today, but it's more so focusing that, when we have a team that really cultivates this mindset and the why of what they do, and they really meaningfully contribute to greater possibility for a group. So it's so beneficial when we think about that. So when you think about fixed, believes talents are fixed, and this can lead to hiding mistakes and flaws. It can lead to feeling more ashamed about failures, perceived failures, and easily giving up or feeling unmotivated. So it's a form of self-protection. So we're in self-protective mode when that happens. However, growth mindset believe that you can improve, and this actually, the switch would be embracing flaws and mistakes as opportunities, accepting setbacks as part of the learning process, and feeling empowered to reach their goal. So, okay, this is part of it. What did I learn from this? And I actually have this example where there was another athlete that I swam with growing up, and oh my gosh, she would come last all the time, but she had so much enthusiasm and so much interest in her craft, and I kind of, would see her around, and little did we know, she ended up making investments and decisions for her performance, and she won a bronze medal at the Olympics in backstroke. And I think like that, if anything, has given me like an open mind about like the power of mindset and what a growth mindset outlook looks like. I feel like this athlete is like such a really exciting example of what that can look like. So love to share that with you. And to put it in perspective, I don't have a medal from the from the Olympics, and she does. So it's really great. So when we think about some ways that fixed and growth mindset can show up, I'd love to kind of have like a pop quiz. So just let me know if you think it's fixed or growth. Does that sound good? So just let me know if you think it's fixed. Let me know if you think it's growth. Okay. So, okay, when I struggle with something, it means I'm a failure. Is that fixed or growth? What do we think? I can't tell if anything's in the chat, but any thoughts?
Maybe thumbs up for fixed and hearts for growth.
Yeah, love that. Great idea. I forget the codes, but if you guessed, who thinks it's a fixed statement? Yes. Okay, the hands. That's better. However, on the flip side, when I struggle with something, it means I'm learning. Growth. Hands up, right? So each of you may have thoughts that pop up, because thoughts pop up so quickly, and it can be fixed growth. So really, the idea here is to become an observer and an observer of your process and what pops up for you. So we have a little exercise here that I have a Google Doc for. Let me just see if it's still saved. There we go. So there's a kind of a collective document that we can work on. However, the objective of this activity is to write down some common phrases that you notice yourself saying to yourself in a high pressure, stressful situation, anything. So kind of honoring what intuitively comes up for you, and identify if your mind is in the past, present, or future with that statement, if it's fixed or growth. And if it is fixed, how would you reframe it to be a growth statement, and when could you use it? So I think those last questions are really important. Like, when could you use this, and like, how are you going to use it? Because when we think about those reps that we want to put in, we wanting to put them in mentally as well. So does everybody have access to the doc? Did it pop up for you? Kind of show of hands if it popped up. Did everyone get in there okay? Yeah. Okay, so feel free to write some examples on the doc itself, or feel free to write some down privately for yourself, or if you have an example that you'd like to walk through, we can do that as well. Let's see, does anybody have one? Let me see, let me go to, where I might lose everyone here for a second. Can stop sharing for a sec just to check out the doc. Okay, so everyone's in there. So one phrase I can kind of get us started. I will never make this shot. So that's kind of an example. What do you think? Is that fixed or growth? I will take a deep breath and do my best. Focus on my release. When could I use this statement? So when would it be most helpful? So kind of taking a moment to think about what you would use. having a format like this can be really helpful as well. Okay, and actually for time's sake, we should keep it moving, but going over something like that, taking some time to think about a growth statement that you could use before training, and then think about how many times did I use it, and can be really helpful to start to build that almost like muscle memory with it. So I'll leave that with you. Another thing that I really want to point out is we talk about goals a lot in sport. You know, we have this goal, but I think it's really important to know, like, what is the foundation of goal setting and why is it so important? So, you know, when you think about setting a goal like climbing Mount Everest, do you think I would just do that like tomorrow? Like, I'm going to think tomorrow, I think I'll go and I'll climb Everest. So like, no, there's a lot of thought and intention that goes into it, right? So not only is that maybe the outcome, but the performances, you know, I have to be at these elevations and get comfortable climbing, you know, this many kilometers a day, so that I'm, you know, my lungs and my body can support something like that. And then when we think about the process, there's different nuances. Like, I have to train this many times a day. I need to, you know, I need to make sure I'm exposing myself to these temperatures. Like, so there's a lot that goes into the process, and, you know, the value, the why that guides the behavior could be like, you know, I really value adventure. I value like new experiences, and this is reflective of that. So what I really wanted to point out here is you got to know, where do you want to be? Like, what are your dreams? Where do you want to be? You have to look at what is it going to take to achieve these goals, and what would tell you that you're on your way. What are the signs that lets you know you're on your way? You know, if I want to win nationals, first of all, I got to qualify for nationals. So where do I want to be at a certain event that allows that door to open? And then what process is going to be important? So what behaviors, mindset, reminders, habits support you? So setting an intention for a drill, noticing, you know, noticing these statements, these are all part of the process that can support you. So really important to identify the needs, and then the process that meets those needs, whether that's self-talk, breath work, focus cues. So knowing, like, what I like to point out on this slide too is, do you see in the corner here, least influence, most influence? So as athletes, we can get into the habit of putting our worth on a moment's outcome. So my worth as an athlete, as a person, is on if I achieve this outcome or not. However, when you look at the side, we have the least influence of that, the other competitors, what they're doing. However, we have the most influence over our process and the why. So the hopes here is that we start to shift this outlook, and really valuing the process and what we're learning about ourselves and discovering along the way. So when we show up, when we do our best, when we set intentions and we maximize our experience, hopefully these will be signs of worth and value as an athlete, and how that's supporting you to get where you'd like to be. So one thing I like to add, this is almost like, this can help motivation as well. So when you think about walking a meaningful path as you achieve your personal goals, creating meaning and connection to your values, and defining a why and how that contributes to your motivation can be really important. It doesn't say here that external motivation or wanting to win or wanting to place in certain things is bad. It's not wrong. It's great. And you know, if that's something that's really high in your motivation, awesome. However, it's important to know, like, why is this important to me? What motivates me? How do I deal with obstacles? You know, how can my values be a source of strength when I come up against obstacles? And how do I revisit these, you know, not only with myself, but in the team space or with coach? And it's really important here when we think about this to display that adaptability and that flexibility. So values and motivation can support the resilience when you do experience setbacks. And what do you draw upon? So noticing what specific cues and skills in terms of mental performance are important for you as an athlete. So oh yeah, did you have a question there?
Yeah, I just want to add something too, is we're talking about sports right now. We have table tennis, we have badminton, and we have hockey here. The thing is, this is not just about sports. This is about your day-to-day life as well. It's about your exams coming up. It can be about anything you want it to be. So it's not just really we're using table tennis because we can use the funding that we have to make this happen, but you can use this for anything you want. And it doesn't need to be for the Arctic Winter Games in 3 weeks or the Canada Games in 5 weeks. It can be for the next Arctic Winter Games too, that are coming up in a year and 2 months. And you just start building where you want to go, how you get there, and then you need to build your goals from there. But I think the biggest one for me, and it's nice that you have it there, it's the why. Why do you want to do this? And this is always, if you have that identification, you say, oh, I want to become a better person. I want to become a better player. Then I think that's the beautiful starting point. And then you just move. And it's such an easy transition into it. You just need to be at that first stepping stone and everything else will fall in place. So thanks for sharing all this, Shelly.
Yeah, like beautifully said. Thank you so much. And I think just as you say that, another thing to add is, you know, your behaviors and the direction that you're going as you walk this path can be aligned with your values and whether you attain the goal or not. So a goal is something you check off. You know, I showed up here tonight, check. However, like, how did I show up here tonight? What were my values? Well, you know, why did I come? You know, is this important to me? So what was I hoping to get out of it? So I think that's something to add to, that we can be aligned with our values. However, if we're in fear, if we're in the past, if we're worried about the future, we can start to notice behaviors that are misaligned with our values. And again, and that's something for us to act upon, to respond to. So I have a little bit more information about this, but in terms of values and the diversity in our interpretation and meaning of values, it's really important to highlight, knowing, you know, amongst a team we'll have different interpretations. So again, you can speak to it or not, but like when I say respect, kind of think about what comes up for you. What comes up for you? What does that mean to you? You can always share it if you'd like, but kind of going through each of these things, like accountability. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? Perseverance, inclusion, balance, teamwork. And you know, in other times that I've gone through this slide in particular with groups, we've seen a bunch of different meanings come through in the chat or come through, and it was so interesting to say, wow, like, I really appreciate that interpretation or that perspective. So it's really a great opportunity to see different voices, and that we do come from a different background and perspective and experience level when we look at this. So it's great to revisit, right? It's not a one and done. It's let's go back and let's see what are my top few. And you know, if we were to rank these in order right now, we could probably have a bunch of different arrangements of it, right? So just something to think about too when we think about these deeper meanings. So why are micro decisions important, and how can they actually have a huge impact? I have a little bit of a video to show you why. So please let me know if you can hear this.
All day long.
Yes.
Humans are doing things. We're always doing something, even if it's just sleeping, we're always doing something. And we can broadly classify what humans do into two large groups of behavior. We can talk about towards moves. We're doing things where we're acting in line with our values, behaving like the sort of person we want to be, acting effectively, doing things that help to make life better. Or we're doing away moves, moving away from our values, behaving unlike the person we want to be, acting ineffectively, doing things that don't improve life or make it worse. And what we're aiming to do in this course is give you a lot more choice so that you can choose to do more towards moves. The more you choose towards moves, the richer, fuller, and more meaningful your life is likely to become. The more effective you are likely to become at creating the sort of life and achieving the sorts of goals you want to achieve. Now, what happens is that in a challenging situation, difficult thoughts and feelings show up for us. And when we get hooked by those difficult thoughts and feelings, we tend to start doing away moves. Difficult thoughts and feelings might include depression, anxiety, stress, pain, suffering, fear, anger, guilt, really, thoughts about not being good enough, thoughts about failing or screwing it up, a whole range of difficult thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, urges, sensations. When we get hooked by this stuff, typically our default setting is we get pulled away from our values and we start acting ineffectively. And so what I'm aiming to do in this course is give you a lot more choice, so that when you're in those challenging situations, whether it's relationship issues, health issues, financial issues, work issues, whatever those challenges are for you, when those difficult thoughts and feelings are showing up for you, I want you to be able to unhook yourself from those thoughts and feelings and make a choice, a wise choice, a choice that you decide as wise. I want you to have the freedom to choose towards moves if that's what you want to do. So to do that, I'm going to introduce you to a bunch of helpers that are going to help you.
Perfect. That's all that we have to go through that one. But did anything stand out with that video in terms of the concept toward moves and away moves? Anybody heard that before? No? Yeah, so again, just like our values and just like walking the path, it really shows that every decision can have a huge, huge impact on our performance. So I hope it doesn't, there we go. So, for example, interested to know what motivates you to play your sport. I know we have an assortment of sports today, but if another team was describing you by watching you at practice or in a tournament, what would they say is important to you about your sport? So just thinking about those questions, I'm curious what answers you come up with. So what motivates you to play? Insert your sport. If another team was describing you, watching you. So it really talks about, in that video, like the power of emotion and how we can start to make micro decisions that move us away from what's important to us. However, if we stay connected to what motivates you to play, your why, have confidence and the skills that you have and almost the gratitude and the opportunity that you have and everything that brought you to that moment. When you're connected to that place, there's a lot more opportunity to have the freedom of choice. So does anybody feel like they have anything that they want to share to these questions? Like if we were watching you, or maybe even just the first one, what motivates you to play? Is there any comments? Let's see. Morgan, what motivates you to play your sport if you're comfortable? Of course you can pass.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. So sometimes I hear, I really like the community. Like I like the community. I like the competitive nature. It's actually just fun. I enjoy myself. It makes me happy. When I visualize my happy place, I actually visualize my sport. I don't know, do any of those sound familiar? Does anyone have something else come up? I don't know, Amelia, I'm kind of curious if you have any motivations. You probably saw that coming.
Yeah, well, now I'm a coach. So I would say right now, I like to share the knowledge that I have learned throughout the years to younger people, mostly because I feel like I'm doing a difference in their life and in their journey in table tennis. But when I was a player, it was mostly because it was an environment where I could forget my routine and just enjoy my time with my friends and my coaches and people who I trusted also. So I feel it was really a safe place for me. So yeah.
Wow, wonderful. And how beautiful to have that transition from athlete to now sharing and passing along that experience. I know for myself, when I think about like being a mental performance consultant, I think about really believing in change and that it's possible and growth and the opportunities. So I feel like that really guides and motivates my passion for meeting with athletes and teams. and what a privilege it is to do so in such a, you know, in this space. So again, considering these questions for yourself, but just knowing when we think about an athletic perspective, there's going to be different situations in sport that evoke different emotions, thoughts, sensations, feelings, and we have different levels of comfort with these feelings that will then elicit it away or towards move from your values. So thinking about, you know, what emotions am I comfortable with, what is uncomfortable, and starting to look at how this process changes our relationship with our feelings, and whatever thoughts, feelings, sensations you have, we can enact, we can utilize, draw upon different mental performance skills to support the next behavior that you do, the next decision. So regardless of how you feel, it doesn't have to determine what's next for you. However, it will be information for you to use something to support yourself in that moment. So an individual reflection, I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time here, but how you can use this is thinking about one challenge that you're currently facing in sport, listing a few values that are important to you, like when you consider why you show up every day, why you train, why you love what you do, listing a few values that come to mind, and then a list of choices that you can use to support yourself in moving forward that does align with that. And knowing that, you know, you have the support system and what supports you can utilize too if you want to more so talk this out. So really normalizing these conversations amongst athletes and teams. So that's an offering for an individual reflection. So I was gonna, after that, I was gonna ask everyone, you know, what did you notice that you value about your sport? But we won't have time to get in there tonight, but feel free if you want to write it in the chat. Menti is just a way to gather your answers anonymously. And then the key concepts like mindset matters, growth statements matter. We're wanting to water the grass that supports you in your performance, and really, you know, when there is clarity around your values and the why, the micro decisions and value-based decisions will really stabilize that foundation to support you in reaching your goals. So those were some key concepts that we explored today, hopefully to consider as your foundation for performance. And, you know, an offering to reflect on a takeaway from today that would make a difference for you for your next practice. You know, how can you take this and actionize something that you've learned here? So I don't know if anybody has any, you know, maybe an answer or comment or something that stood out to them in our conversation tonight, but I would love to hear it. And also any questions that you may have. So I'll stop sharing right now. Any takeaways from the group or something that stood out to you, and or any questions?
And if you don't feel comfortable right now, we're always here. So you can always send an email to me and we can connect with Shelby. We have also Amelia here. Like we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to help and support you to become the best version of yourself and whatever that looks like. And there's no stupid questions. Everybody says it, but it's true. And yeah, whenever you feel free and ready, then let us know. We're all here to support you in your journey and whatever that might look like.
Absolutely. And kind of echoing that, thank you so much, Thorsten. It's a lot of information all at once, and some of us like to take it away, process it a little bit. So this isn't a one-time discussion. I am really happy to provide any additional resources or answer any questions to at a later date. So thanks for that reminder.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you have any questions? Any questions? Not right now. As I said, yeah, you can send an email to me. I'll put my email address here somewhere. If I can. Maybe I cannot.
You can in the chat, yeah.
Oh, yes, I can now. And then we can reach out to Shelby, and if you have anything, let us know. I know I see Kathleen and David this weekend. So yeah, and what else did I want to say? Thank you very much. We have another session coming up in 2 weeks. If you want to join us on the 18th, same time, same spot, same link. I will send a reminder to everybody. That includes all our hockey kids, our badminton kids, and our table tennis kids. And of course, coaches and everybody else that wants to join. We're going to put the recording out. And yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Shelby, for taking the time to working with Team NT. Yeah, now you're part of Team NT.
So excited. Yeah. And if you do, like, please, if you have any feedback or anything specific that you're hoping to learn or explore together, please provide that that feedback to Thorsten, or in whatever way feels accessible, and we can make sure that we're covering things that you're curious about and will be meaningful for you. So yeah, thanks so much for having me. I look forward to our next one.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. Thanks, Kathleen, Amelia, David, and of course, Shelby. Thanks for coming. Have a good night, everyone.
So.